Welcome to the Board Game Snobs podcast. Critically harsh reviews with a touch of class.
And go.
Alrighty. Welcome to your favorite episode. Well, this is your favorite episode of your favorite podcast, Board Game Snobs. This is Jerry, the star of the show. Am I coming in clearly? Can you hear me clearly?
You are 100% clear, unfortunately.
I don't have enough snare in my headphones.
Yeah.
That's Gobby.
It's a little slurred speech. I'm not sure what that is. Maybe that's the microphone. I don't know.
/ audio guy / host.
Primary host, foundation cornerstone of the podcast.
And with us, we have a special guest, because we do special guests every once in a while. Who do we have? Well, it's our dear friend, Giuseppe. Say hello, Giuseppe.
Hello. I think I'm the least qualified person you've ever had on the show, but I'm so excited to be here.
No, we had Enrique on many times. I think it goes Enrique, Christian, Solard. Well, he's got his own podcast now, so Soul Train's got a podcast. Who else have we had on?
Dan Hughes,
Delicious Toes. You're probably. I'm just going to come out and say this, Giuseppe. You're in our top 5 of guests, considering we haven't had that many.
Great praise.
He might be better known to many on Instagram as AKA Board Game Diner.
Yes, the man who eats and regurgitates board game pieces. It's quite entertaining seeing those meeples get sucked down and then come right back up.
We were going to call it Cardboard Cafe, but that didn't ring as well as Board Game Diner.
Cardboard. It's all about alliteration, I see. Well, no, Board Game Diner doesn't really have any Cardboard Cafe. I don't know. That's a tough one.
How about the solo sommelier? How do you say that?
Sommelier?
Sommelier. What I say, sommelier?
You're slurring. I don't know if it's the microphone or...
No, it's this Stella Artois I'm drinking.
That 5% Stella Artois. So we got you going.
You can smell the hint of Belgium in it.
Did you know, Jerry and Giuseppe, the 3 banded armadillos can live up to 16 years?
Oh, God. We're done with the armadillo stuff, aren't we?
No. I've got a lot to tell you about armadillos. Armadillos. Did you know it's the only species? Now, we talked last time about the roly-poly effect. It's the only species of the roly-poly that actually does. The 3-banded is the only one that rolls up into a ball for defense. See, I'm shattering myths right now.
I'm amazed.
Most armadillos quickly dig deep. They're known as quick diggers, those armadillos. They will burrow down deep in the dirt, and just their shell will be showing for protection. But the 3-banded species, go ahead. I see you. Hand raised. Go ahead, Mr. Baker.
I have a joke. It's not my joke. It's from Richard Lupino. The joke is, what do an armadillo and Yoko Ono have in common? They both live off dead beetles. One's known as a great digger. One's known as a gold digger.
I can only imagine. They're mostly it says they are endemic to eastern Brazil. What does endemic mean? Is that like pre-pandemic?
No, pandemic is like it's all over the place. Endemic means they're everywhere in that area, but they don't like spread out, I think.
Like rabbits. They're the rabbits of Brazil.
Pandemic. Something else. I can't remember all the emics.
Huh. Interesting. It says that when they do roll up into a ball, sometimes they don't go all the way closed up in the ball. Sometimes they stay slightly open, and then when the predator touches it, they snap shut like pap. Much like Richard Gere does the jewelry box to Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman. Remember how he snapped that and it scares the predator. Bam! Woo!
Stay away from me, woman. You want this? You want this? Oh, so close.
And so then the predator is scared away, scurries off. It says they mark their territories with, get this, secretions from glands on their faces, feet, and rumps. I don't know that rump is a scientific term, but it was on Wikipedia.
That's posterior.
Oh, like a rump roast. Can you eat armadillo?
Yes, you can.
Ooh.
Actually, I believe in Mexico and some regions, they actually will. I was told now, so please write in if you know better than this, because I'm sure this is third-hand knowledge. But they would cook them in their own shell.
Nobody knows armadillos more than me. Go ahead.
They would cook them in their own shell, like stick forks or sticks up into the meat and set that over the fire, and then like cook them and then eat them out of their own shell, was what I was told.
Oh, that's horrendous. Poor armadillo.
So you guys don't eat armadillo in your area? I just assumed.
No, it's possum here.
No, Giuseppe's from Las Vegas, the land of venereal diseases, and we just assume that y'all eat geckos and things over there and cigarette butts. I don't know. What's the main cuisine in Las Vegas?
Cigarette butts and old liquor, cheap liquor, shrimp cocktails, you know. Actually, we do have a terrible outbreak of rabbits. Rabbits are actually native to Las Vegas and southern Nevada. And people have abandoned their pets over the years, and the pets have bred with the local rabbits. And now there are just gangs of rabbits all over the city, living wherever they can in the little bit of foliage in this desert. And apparently they're brutal rabbits that attack each other. The weak get attacked and killed because there's so little food, and they eat the weak. And it's like a really terrible thing. And they've been trying to solve it, but they can't.
Okay. First off, a group of rabbits is not called a gang. It's called a fluffle.
Yes, a fluffle.
So, second thing is, do y'all not have any predators in Los Angeles? Well, I know y'all have predators.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, like,
usually Chris Hansen is talking to them.
I'm Chris Hansen.
They're at the Trump Hotel.
There's not enough. There's too many rabbits. The coyotes can't eat all of them. And the rabbits are like in the city, and the coyotes are out on the edges. So,
rabbits are in the penthouse.
But then we have dogs, wild dogs, or stray dogs.
Rabbits roaming around with their leather jackets and spiked studs. The Jets and the rabbits.
Do yourself a favor, since you're talking about gangs of rabbits. Most people don't realize that rabbits are very violent. Get on YouTube and look up rabbit MMA or rabbit UFC. I'm serious. There are tons of videos of rabbits fighting to the literal death. And they take that, they put that to some music, you put a little corn to that, and you just watch rabbits fight to the death. It's disturbing. But that might be a thing that y'all would like in Las Vegas.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know if I want to see a rabbit die, but it would be interesting.
Poor rabbit.
You Las Vegas people, y'all do anything for entertainment. Y'all had Wayne Newton there for years.
Yep. This is the headquarters of MMA,
Is that why they call it the Bunny Ranch? Because there's so many rabbits there?
Yes, exactly.
Interesting. Did you know that the ancient Peruvian Incans used to tell time by how long it took to cook potatoes to various temperatures? I just found that out.
So different segments of time were like hard-boiled. I don't know. What are the different... How do you describe the different types of potato cooking? Soft?
Do y'all not have potatoes in Las Vegas?
Of course not. If it can't be flown in to a casino landing pad, we don't eat it. So
you don't grow anything out there, do you? Besides gonorrhea.
No, we used to. And there is still some agriculture in the middle of the state. But
like
no,
what?
everything
What if
based...
If I was going to bring my mad growing skills to Las Vegas, what
Potatoes
would I be growing?
grow everywhere. Potatoes. I bet they're out there.
Yeah, you could grow. See, here's the thing: you have to understand the soil is totally useless. So if you're going to grow anything, you have to bring the soil too.
It's all just sand, right?
Right. So you can grow stuff, but you're going to need to fertilize it. You're probably going to need to start with some sort of base soil. And you're going to have to deal with it becoming extremely hot. It has to survive it getting hot really fast and for a long time and really cold. So those are your problems.
So
Like
whatever
roses
grows
really
off
hard
a
to grow 'cause they die in
tumbleweed.
the cold. What was that?
Okra.
Okra grows off tumbleweeds?
I bet okra could grow.
I could see okra growing.
If potatoes can grow on Mars, they can grow in Las Vegas.
I'm sure they can. And water, you'll have to water just constantly. You can never rely on, because we often go 200 days without rainfall. So
things dry out very easily.
yes.
Do you chafe a lot over there?
Yes.
Lots of chafing in Las Vegas.
I'll explain to you how dry it is here. When I travel anywhere else, the air smells weird to me because I'm not used to moisture in the air. And often, like, everything smells moldy or something to me because I've never smelt those kind of things because the air here is just utterly, utterly dry.
Sounds good to me. No sweating. That's one of my biggest problems. I'm a profuse sweater.
You still sweat here. It'll be different, though. You'd probably like it better because there's no humidity either.
When I used to play video games, just playing Street Fighter, air hockey, I would sweat in the arcade. Highly embarrassing. And I wasn't even big then. I was a young, skinny man at that time. I just sweat. Much like I secrete fluids from my face, much like the three-banded armadillo.
Okay, we're done with the
maybe I was marking my territory. I'm like, this is my Street Fighter machine as I secrete my facial fluids upon it.
We're done with the armadillo stuff. I'm gonna have to.
Why are you hating on? What about potatoes?
I'm done with potatoes too. There was a famine. It was terrible.
Tater's gonna tate. I see how you are. I am what I am. I have all these potato puns ready to go. This spud's for you. As I drink my beer.
Actually, you may know this. A real interesting fact about potatoes. Potatoes created colonialism because the potato was the first crop that could feed all of the Europeans and make giant cities. And when they found it in South America and brought it back, they had a massive population explosion. And that caused them to seek new places to move. And that's what caused, every colonialization, moving to the New World, everyone rushing over into the Americas, because there was such overpopulation in Europe because potatoes could feed so many people.
Oh,
So all things
look at
to the
that.
Incas.
Hot potato. And that's how the game was invented. Anytime you play hot potato, you're just furthering colonialism.
Yeah,
That's my thought.
So when they, how long did it take them to get to America? 1 potato, 2 potatoes, 3 potato, 4 potato, 5 potato.
You
That's how they
do
did their
a
time.
lot of stuff with potatoes. Okay, so
What if
first
they
off,
made
I
a
think-
potato-based Star Wars starring Darth Tater?
No. I think we need to give people some background on Giuseppe because we didn't really introduce him. We just said this is Giuseppe, and then we started. I'm just now
Giuseppe.
realizing, like, we just
There he
said,
is.
we have a guest. We have this guy that just showed up, and we're just going to talk. So we started the podcast back in 2017, and of course, Gabi was obsessed with, is anybody listening? And I think the first listener that ever messaged us or had any email was Giuseppe, wasn't it?
Well, no, he was the second. He was the second and the longest lasting emailer. Captain Croc emailed us, but he wanted that Meeples game, Meeple Wars.
We don't talk about Captain Croc.
I don't know that Captain Croc's still there.
No, he's not here. He's not listening. We've talked so much trash about
If he's not listening, yes, I'm going to rewrite history, much like most people do. And Giuseppe's still here. So Giuseppe is the first emailer.
Yeah, Giuseppe's the longest running listener of our show. And I don't know why. I don't know why he has nothing else better to do. But essentially, off and on, we have corresponded with Giuseppe. And next thing I know, Gabi has invited him onto the show. And so that's how it goes. If you listen long enough, eventually we let you onto the show.
We reward loyalty. We're like Kroger. We have a loyalty program. CBS.
Have you listened to 100 episodes?
If you email us,
you might get a chance. Oh. But anyways, we thought it would be nice to have Giuseppe on the show, to have some variety, but also just to talk. And we hope Giuseppe plays board games. We just assumed that he listens to us for our hot board game reviews rather than just our banter.
Quick question. Giuseppe, does everyone call you Giuseppe, all 3 syllables? Because that's a lot.
Some people call me G. So you could do that. Yeah. But most people just call me by my name. Yeah.
No, like Jesse's or Sep or...
No, I don't really have a nickname. What will happen, like when I start a new job or something or meet someone, they'll call me by my full name. And then after a while, they'll just start calling me G. Because when you email me or you text me, it's just so much easier to type G. Even my family members type that.
Yes.
And that's just what happens. But it's not really my nickname. I just usually go by my full name.
And your last name is Macchiaverna?
Yeah, so we say Macchiaverna. So we killed all the Italian accent it could have. We just say Macchiaverna.
Hey, Macchiaverna.
Yes.
Ah! So G-Mac. Oh, I
G-Mac? G-Mac, yes. Literally.
Got you.
Is that why you derailed my topic?
Yeah, sorry. Giuseppe, I was writing out his email. I'm like, and I like had to reference it 3 times. I'm like, G-I, is a U in there? Okay, then there's a E. How many P's? How many S's? It's a difficult name to spell out. Giuseppe.
It's actually really funny because my name sometimes like causes people to become paralyzed when I try to say it to them or they try to say it. Now, if they're from the East Coast, they're probably familiar with it because on the East Coast, because it's one of the most common names in Italy. It's the Italian version of Joseph. Mm-hmm. So if you're from the East Coast and your name is Joey, your real name is probably actually Giuseppe. So people on the East Coast know it.
Hey, Joey, huh?
Yep. But some people, they've never heard it, and they just flip out. And sometimes they literally can't say it, so they will say Gillespie. Or if they're more familiar with Spanish, they'll say Guadalupe.
Guadalupe! That was my grandmother's name.
And I just answered to that. I answer to anything.
I'm the same way. Gabriel Andres Moraga. I mean, like Gabriel. Okay, people. Actually, my name is Gabriel, but most people.
The girl's name.
Only in Mexico, apparently. Some of my Mexican friends have told me they're like Gabriel. That's what we call the girls. I'm like, well, where my dad's from, it's masculine, or I guess it goes both ways. I don't know. But Moraga, like in school, inevitably was just Morgan. Gabe Morgan, like that was my name. Like I was really Americanized with Gabe Morgan.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, it sounds like you have exactly the same experience I had. My name was always strange to my teachers, and here there's lots of Hispanic people. Lots of people speak Spanish, so the Hispanic names are even easier usually than mine was. So it's just when you have a different name. Unlike Jerry, you're always different.
Jerry Baker. So cliche.
That's dead. My real name's Gerald Donison Bakerson III. So we were trying to get to know the man behind the name Giuseppe, not just the etymology of your name. So tell us about you, Giuseppe. The fans are clamoring to know more about you. Who is this shadowy figure we've brought on to the podcast?
Well, they're going to be severely disappointed. My only claim to fame is I have an Instagram with a few followers, like 3,000 plus or something. But, so I guess that's something. But I'm not a content
Do you
creator.
have a OnlyFans?
Not that I'm willing to share here on the podcast, no.
And what does your Instagram display?
Well, basically just my wife and I playing board games, and not even pictures of us necessarily, just pictures of the actual board games we're playing. And we are pretty much the classic story. Actually, what's real fortunate is my wife is actually I always say more fanatical about board games than I When we got married in, okay, maybe I'll get the date right, 2016. That seems about right. And
she came into the frame all of a sudden.
She had never played any modern board games, and I had only ever played Catan. And I showed her Catan, and she loved it so much. She's like, "Is there more? Are there more games we can get?" And I started researching it and started watching the Dice Tower, and now we have 2 Calyxes fully stuffed in board games on the side. So I think we have like over 300 games and expansions now. So from nothing when we got married. So yeah, pretty much fanatical hobbyists.
Your wife, Summer.
Yes. She's a medical professional, although she's actually a secretary, not a nurse. But she works right on the floor in the ICU. She does the paperwork. When the patients come in, when they leave, when they die, she does the paperwork.
Sounds fun.
It is. Those people are invaluable. Yes, the ones that shuffle and take care of the ward clerks, that take care of all the people dying, people getting sick, people coming into any type of hospital, generates scads of paperwork. And yes, the unsung heroes of the hospital.
So where did you play most of your games there in Vegas?
What's really great in Vegas, of course, in the before times, before the pandemic, we actually have a couple different board game cafes, but we have one of the best, I think, in the world. Although I haven't really visited any others. But we have Meepleville. But Meepleville Cafe, it's owned by a gentleman, Tim, who actually works for Yellow.
The Knights of Ye! What is your name? Tim!
He actually works for Yellow. I know, I have notes. That's not in my notes. But Meepleville has over 2,000 board games in their library. And they usually get the newest games almost upon release to play. So it was a fantastic, wonderful place. You could go and play all the games before you decide to buy them and just, pick the best. You'd never be disappointed with anything you bought. And other famous people there like Chris and Wendy Yee, famed Meeple Overboard podcasters who have never invited me on their show, even though we're personal friends in real life.
See, that's what you get. Board Game Snobs appreciates their fans.
You're now number one.
Who's Chris Yee?
Meeple Overboard, a podcast and a regular, somewhat regular on a sporadically board, and now he's a member of the Dice Tower, a full-time member.
I'm not going to say they hate their fans, but I'll just say they don't appreciate their fans in the same way that we do.
And that's what I appreciate about you.
What's the Dice Tower again? No.
Who?
Who?
Exactly. So you frequent this diner, and you and your wife, who sounds like your wife is the one we probably should have had on the show, since she probably knows all about the board
Yes.
games. And so that's really y'all's main hobby. It's going to this diner. You center your Instagram around that, and that's really that board gaming is your main hobby, you would say.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have a few other hobbies. Everyone likes to travel when you have time, and food. Now, of course, again, before the pandemic, I love to try different types of food. I'm much more adventurous than my wife, but she'll come along. But any cuisine that I've never tried before, jump right into it and eat it. See what it's like. If it's terrible, I'd never go back. But I'm always want to experiment with new things.
I hear possum was big back during the Depression. Have you had possum?
I would try any animal once. I've never had possum. I have had kangaroo.
You've had kangaroo?
Yeah, I had kangaroo. Not in Australia, sadly. That's what I really need. I need to go to Australia and try kangaroo.
What did it taste like?
How did you get
in
kangaroo?
New York City, I was at this fancy steakhouse, and they actually had kangaroo on the menu. And I decided, why not? Let's try it. And it was not too exciting. It tasted just kind of like meat.
They were getting rid of some rats, so that's when they told you it was Roo.
Yeah. What part of the kangaroo did you eat?
I don't know. That's a good question. I wish I could answer that. I didn't ask.
A big foot. Imagine a big kangaroo foot just sitting in front of you like a big corn cob.
I mean, it was kind of round and circular. Maybe it was the tail. No.
Was it called Ratarooey? That wouldn't let you know.
Maybe.
Interesting. But did you say what it tastes like? Like, I mean, everybody, of course, says chicken.
No, I mean, it was red meat. It was just kind of gamey red meat, really.
Hops?
I mean, I guess, I don't know. I don't think it was a very good, I think because it was frozen.
Was this on a street corner? What was this place? A frozen leg of a Roo? What are you doing there?
Gabby, we really got to start screening the people we bring on this podcast. It's like he's like, if it had been killed and eaten fresh, the Roo may have been tasty, but having it flown in,
I'm sure you'll have an Australian on one day who will explain what fresh Roo is like. Probably.
The next day on the news, they're like, Roo missing from the New York Zoo. And the guy's like, I don't know what you're talking about. So what else have you eaten interesting? Now I'm interested. I've had buffalo. That's the most exotic thing I've had. Concerned.
Not too many. I mean, I like different cuisines. I like Chinese food. I have tried a lot of different Chinese dishes. We have a great Chinatown here in Vegas. There's places where you can go where no one speaks English and the menu's all in Chinese. And I've never had anything really strange. But I did have bitter melon once, which was totally terrible. They love it, apparently. Chinese people love it. Chinese cuisine is all about the texture. As a matter of fact, they think Western food is boring because it has no texture. And bitter melon, or is it called winter melon? I may have the name wrong, but it's one of those. It may be called both. But it is prized because it's slimy. Actually, kind of like that one.
Okra.
Okra, yes. If you put okra in a stew. So imagine a melon that's kind of like that, and they sort of stir-fried it with other vegetables, and every bite is like this slimy, kind of sticky thing. Pretty darn terrible.
Sounds disgusting.
So Giuseppe likes to travel the world, eat exotic dishes, and say, "This is awful."
Yes,
you're the Gordon Ramsay of the board gaming community. This is terrible. Your roux isn't fresh, and your bitter melon is slimy.
Roux is part of soup, right? Like a roux, R-U-E. Maybe that's what you had. You just had a roux, not a kangaroo.
Well, my other claim to fame is that I failed at a cooking school. So that's why I try to be a food snob. Because I didn't make it to cooking school, but I was there more than you. So, I can, more than the average person. So I can be snobbish about food.
I struck a little too close to home there about the Gordon Ramsay comment. I didn't know. Is there any other jokes I should stay away from? Yeah. Were you one of those contestants on the show where Gordon put the two pieces of bread next on each side of your head? Said, "No, what kind of sandwich are you?"
I've never watched any of Gordon Ramsay stuff. Just saying.
I love Gordon Ramsay. Gordon Ramsay
because he's mean and evil.
He ruined television for a lot of people because he basically made it popular for this not true TV. What do they call it? Reality TV for basically you get to be mean to people. And now people associate people who are really eccentric and good at their trade as being incredibly rude. It's like nobody can be good at what they do and kind. You have to be a complete and total jerk like Gordon Ramsay.
Simon Cowell.
I love watching Gordon Ramsay just cook. Just because I think the wrinkles in his forehead are amazing.
What would be some of your, what's your favorite? Do you have a top 5 games, a favorite style games? Like, what do you enjoy playing? Because I will admit, some of your games that you say you like on your Instagram, we don't necessarily care for.
Yeah.
Your opinions suck, is what you're trying to say in a nice way.
I know. Well, we just had to live with it because sometimes we have pulled the car over and been shocked at what you guys have said about certain games.
What is a game that we have shocked you on? Go ahead.
I don't know. I should have made a list of that, but I didn't because I don't keep track of injury. I don't know.
I know you like Champions of Midgard, and we don't like that game.
Okay.
We don't own that game, though, so we're not totally devoted
okay.
to it. But what about, Raiders of the North Sea? You guys like that?
Oh,
We
I
like
love
it a
that
lot.
one. I love that one. Jerry's okay with it.
It's okay for basic people.
But Raiders of
But
Scythia
I agree
has
with your view. Yeah, I agree with your views on it, Jerry.
Yeah.
But we like that a lot. We definitely like Euros. We're big on Euros. I mean, Agricola we love. So farming simulation, boring themes, we're all into that. I did make a few lists of a few things we really like. Let me see.
Well, we love lists. So hack at us. What is this a list of? What's do you happen to know Summer's favorite game?
Yeah, we talked about it. It's pretty much the same. We're kind of similar. There's a few games that I like a lot more than she does. Like, for instance, I really like, and is it not on my list? Well, okay. Let's start with some that we like together. Castles of Burgundy. We like almost every Feld game. And as a matter of fact, I feel the Castles of Burgundy, it may not be the greatest game ever made, but it is when you play it, it is like a machine, like a clock. You move all those tiles, it's counting down towards the end of the game. You know exactly what's happening. That's actually the first modern board game we played after Catan. And we bought it from Target and just read the rule book and figured it out. And it's just because once you place everything on the board, the way that you move the tiles, everything counts down, you know exactly where you are in the sequence of the game. I like the precision of that game. Not that it's the greatest game ever made, but I think it's a perfect example of a Euro game. So that's another one, Castles of Burgundy. Oh, we love Marco Polo.
That one has failed us.
What?
Go ahead. I like the card. We like the card game over the board game, just FYI.
Really? We never played the card game.
The card game, to me, it does the board game just faster, better, cleaner. When we've played both. We've played both.
Now, other Feld games, we like the other ones too. We like Amerigo. We like Trajan. Of course, there's more to them. There's more pieces in those, Trajan is pretty involved.
I just bought Trajan. It's actually sitting on Copy's shelf right now. And I had played it a few times, and it seems to be an interesting puzzle. Stefan Feld made one of the worst games I had ever played. And it really turned me off his games. I mean, I have deep respect for Castles of Burgundy, and I desperately want to like Feld games. But that Aquasphere was horrifyingly bad. And after that, it kind of went downhill. So back to your thought on Marco Polo. Have you played Marco Polo 2?
Yes.
Which one do you prefer?
So far, we like the first one better.
I just was wondering why you insist on being wrong. Because the second one is much better.
Summer did not like the second one. And I think part of the problem was the second one does a few things quite a bit differently, and some paths to victory are different. Mm-hmm. And her favorite path to victory did not work as well in number 2, I think.
Is her path to victory simply going to the market and fulfilling contracts?
Yes, I think it might be.
Okay. we actually call that path to victory the Enrique move, because Enrique will not travel in Marco Polo, buy contracts, and go to the market and almost win each and every time.
He stays home.
But we have not played it enough. And here's the interesting thing that happened to us. Of course, we lost Meepleville because of the pandemic. And then, and maybe when we get into telling my story of my medical condition, currently the vast majority of our board game collection is in storage. And it actually, we didn't realize it was going to be in storage as long. It was only supposed to be in storage for like a month, really. And then, so we didn't think about like what games to keep out. We just have a random assortment of the games that we happen to have with us at the time we put everything in storage. So we have not been able to get back to Marco Polo 2 and play it more. We may change our mind after more plays. I think that's definitely possible. But I have to call you guys out. How can you play Marco Polo without the characters?
I have gotten, now I'll say this. anytime I want to play Marco Polo and I want to feel like I have soundly beaten somebody, like we are even and we're playing across the board. That's generally the way we like to play it. But when I play Marco Polo on BGA, I don't mind the characters. I think that greatly adds a lot of variety. I like that variety. I just don't want to play a Euro game that feels so unbalanced. And to me, that's what the characters do. And so, but I enjoy playing with the characters. It's just that the first game of Marco Polo that I played, I was that one character where I could set the value of my die. And that just seemed like just to blow every other player out of the water by being able to switch these dies around. It seemed so unfair. And then I think that's the thing that just got me, is that some of these characters just seem way overpowered in comparison to the others.
Yeah, I totally agree with your thoughts on that, because I don't know if they're all equal. I also feel like the real challenge is that each one favors a certain play style. And if you haven't figured out how the special ability fits into which play style and how to maximize it, you'll be held behind. Where some of them that are clearly like the one where you change the dice, or the one where you never pay money when you put your dice on other people's dice. Oh, so powerful. So I agree.
Well, I'm glad that you agree with me. You're coming up in our top 5 guest column.
Well, I want to come back, so I will agree with everything.
The Marco Polo was the first game, I believe we said, where the asymmetrical powers we enjoyed. Yeah. Even though they did seem like we played it, our first game of it, we played it, and I had the one where you don't pay for the, going on top of somebody, and Jerry had changing his dice. Enrique had the one
that's not how it goes in Las Vegas. Go ahead.
Enrique had the one where he gets another contract for free, so he was all about them contracts. So we played it, but the asymmetrical thing, it's just hard for us to rectify that. How can they possibly know that these are balanced? I mean, yeah, they play test it, but it just seems nearly impossible that one of these does not have the edge over the other. So we just usually do away with it. But Marco Polo is kind of the exception, that we do enjoy playing it with the powers every now and then.
Yeah, and so we like Marco Polo. Much like you guys, we like many of those games from the Italian designers. Grand Austria Hotel. Let's see, what else do they have?
Newton.
I should have made a list. I didn't. But but yeah, all the Italian designers, those games we enjoy a lot. Basically any Euros. Underwater Cities we also really enjoy. We also really like Terraforming Mars. I know that's not one of Jerry's favorites.
It's a good solo.
We play that with all the expansions. One game. Have you guys played Obsession, the Downton Abbey game?
Yes, I have.
And your thoughts?
I played that. It's been over a year. I played that with Captain America, Gobby, when you were gone. I don't think you were there. It's interesting. I enjoy what I recall from it. It seemed like it went on a little too long, but I saw why people enjoyed it. The theme of it comes through very, very clearly. This moving your servants around to certain areas and having these guests and having to fulfill. I remember enjoying it for it being different, but at the same time, it didn't blow me away. It didn't blow me away, but it was one of those that I kind of put in the back of my mind to try to play again. And I see a lot of people, I guess it's got another release come out, because I see a lot of people playing it now. But it's one that I was intrigued by, but it didn't blow me away the first time I played it. But I've been wanting to play it again if I ever get a hands on a copy of it.
Yeah, it's difficult to get because, but it's absolutely one of our favorites. I would say that's probably Summer's number one game, maybe. She really likes it. But it's made by just one guy, and basically it's difficult to get unless you back one of the Kickstarters. And we actually missed the first Kickstarter, and we won a contest on Instagram. Someone was giving away a copy, and we got selected. And we just played the heck out of that, and then we backed the second Kickstarter. But the designer of it, Dan Halligan, I think is how his name is said, he is so involved. He responds to people on Board Game Geek. If there's any problem with the game, he sends replacement parts, and he's just running it out of his home. It's pretty amazing. And he does all these videos, like all the videos on how to play it, he shot them himself. So it's really fascinating. I think it's an interesting game because of like just an independent designer making it and publishing it himself and doing all the, he does all the tutorials for it too. I mean, everything, everything about the game is just the one designer doing the whole thing. It's real fascinating.
Does it have a solo? I think it does, right?
It has a great solo. I would highly recommend it as solo.
Really?
And it has a couple different, originally there was just one version of solo that was great. But now he's added a new solo with the expansion, which is better. And you can play either one. There's also a co-op version, which is really great too. I mean, it's a game we really enjoy. And I think it's a good solid Euro, resource management and how you manage your servant is really fascinating because you need to bring servants into an event to take care of your guests. And then they have to rest for a couple turns. So you have to like manage when your servants are going to be available to do the different events. And you could have the perfect event and the perfect guests and not the right servants. And then you're screwed. So it's good. It's a good game.
I think
Such a faux pas.
I think if anything positive has come out of a pandemic, so the emphasis on solo gaming being put into board games. Like, there's lots of people that enjoy that, and also, since we can't be around each other, it's like, I look for games that have solos. And unfortunately, I think about, like, okay, we have this pandemic. Oh, yeah, it's been the second one in nearly 100 years. There may be another one sometime soon. We don't know. But I look for solo games. So if a session... And the only reason I know of this game is your Instagram. And I also love Downton Abbey. Hey, have you watched Poldark and or Victoria, Giuseppe?
I've not watched Poldark yet. I watched a little bit of Victoria. I don't feel like I watch enough TV. I should watch more.
I'm too busy reading books. Victoria is very good. If I had to choose Victoria over Poldark, I would choose Victoria over Poldark. Poldark is good, but I like Victoria better, and my wife concurs with me. It does have a Doctor Who alumni, so it does. In Victoria, Clara Oswald, she's there. She's the Queen of England.
I do love Doctor Who. I'll have to say, I haven't been able to watch it though because I don't even know where to watch the newest episodes. There's no channel that has them.
They're all on, I believe, HBO Max now.
Oh, are they on now? Okay.
Yeah.
So I do have HBO Max. I'll have to check them out. I really like Doctor
Who. Who's your favorite Who?
Actually, the 8th Doctor is my favorite Doctor Who.
Is that Baker?
No.
No, that's the 4th.
The 8th Doctor, he only appeared in one TV movie, but I'm such a Who fanatic that I listen to original Doctor Who audio dramas.
Wow. What a nerd.
Paul McGann. Paul McGann is my favorite Doctor.
Paul McGann.
And he's only appeared in 2 televised Doctor Who's, but he's done hundreds of original audio dramas.
Wow. Look at you. Kicking up the nerd notch.
Yeah.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
He was also in Luther, I think in the early seasons of the show Luther, if you watch that. He's been in a lot of there's only so many actors in England, so they're all in everything.
They're all in everything.
But he is my favorite Doctor.
Used to be a prime minister as well, looks like. Dan
Hughes will be next. His Kickstarter of Core Quest such a success, he's liable to be next. When you got 3 people over there, it's like, what are you going to choose?
They just have to go and take turns. Each one can be prime minister.
Who's the current prime minister of England? Anybody know?
It's Boris.
Oh, that's right. Boris Yeltsin. I got you.
That's right. The guy with the spot on his head. I hate to tell you, Gabby, but you look a lot like Boris Yeltsin here on this video. You got this bald head.
If I could just
Wait,
get a little spot.
I think you're confusing Yeltsin with Gorbachev.
Oh, I am. Oh, comrades, I've made a mistake. I get them so confused. I get my Russian dictators confused. I like taters, but I don't like dictators.
Dictators? That's a whole different show. If you got dictators,
if you got rubbing off on us,
if you got dictators, you got a whole different problem. Try cleaning it every now and then. Go ahead.
Let's hard merge into G Units. That's what I'm gonna call him from now on. That's his new nickname.
G-Mac.
You mentioned your medical history. Go ahead and just talk about all your private medical history here on our podcast for all to hear.
Absolutely. I'm going to start with my social security number and no. Yeah.
Where do you live?
So among the many terrible things that happened in 2020, including losing my job, which I had a great job I loved, and they just closed down at the beginning of the pandemic. In September of 2020, I went to the urgent care. Never go to the urgent care. I never go to the doctor. I'd actually never been hospitalized before. But so it was so weird. I was just at home. I was playing some video games on the computer, and suddenly I started having this terrible muscle pain, like all over my body. I mean, muscles that I didn't even know existed or had ever used were just extremely sore and just tremendous pain. And I thought, well, I'll just sleep it off. I'll be better tomorrow. And, I took some ibuprofen or something and went to bed. And I woke up and it was exactly the same. No change. Nothing I could do. Hot showers, stretching, nothing was relieving it. And so I decided I should go to the urgent care. So I get to the urgent care and they think I'm dehydrated. They take a blood test. They think I'm dehydrated. They think they're just going to give me some fluids and I'll be okay. And they take the blood test and my platelets are, well, life-threateningly low. Jerry will know these numbers. They were 6,000. Yeah. Basically, spontaneous death could occur at any moment at that level. So they tell me I have COVID, which I guess maybe pretty crappy diagnosis, though. So I go to the hospital assuming I have COVID. They take me to the ER. They realize I'm not bleeding internally, so something else is wrong. They're able to stabilize me, and they have a hematologist come and examine me, and he thinks that I have some sort of autoimmune disease. But they take a bone marrow biopsy just to be sure. And surprise, surprise, after I've been in the hospital about a week, I have not only cancer, I have a rare form of leukemia. It is called acute lymphoblastic leukemia. It is not hereditary. It just spontaneously starts up one day, often in your 40s or 60s. Children can get it too. And children are much more survivable than adults. So I get diagnosed with that. And that starts a pretty terrible couple of weeks when they try to see if they can stabilize me there in the hospital. And thankfully, I respond really well to chemotherapy. And they actually are able to release me. I spend about 2 weeks in the hospital, and then they're able to release me and just treat me from home. Things just get better. And currently I'm in remission. They were able to get me to remission. Now, with leukemia, that remission it doesn't last forever. It will, it will come back. So that starts, what are we going to do? So I'm getting treatment here. We think about, do I need to go to a specialist? Healthcare is not the best in Nevada. As a matter of fact, it's kind of near the bottom of the country. So most people leave to a specialized institution in another state. And the institution that said they were interested in taking me was in Miami, the Miami Cancer Clinic. But and I'm getting a little ahead of the story here. So we were making plans to move to Miami. At the same time I got sick, we had actually bought a brand new house and we were waiting for it to finish being constructed. And because of my illness, we no longer qualified for it. So we had to give it up. And we originally put our stuff into storage for 1 month, thinking it would all be sent to our new house. And instead, we now live with my parents. And our stuff is just in storage, including our board game collection. And then the next big thing is we thought we were going to move to Miami and I was going to get treatment there. But after some additional testing, the specialist in Miami feels that I can just stay here in Las Vegas. And I'm still under the care of that specialist, but my treatment will be administered by a local doctor in a hospital here. And I know I jumped through a whole bunch of things. It's been a little bit less than 6 months since my diagnosis, but that's kind of the thing. I mean, I don't know. It's pretty life-changing, and it's terminal and terrible, and I don't know if I'll survive it. It's pretty difficult to survive. But at the current time, I don't really have any problems, besides minor side effects from the chemo. March 1st, I'll be starting a more intensive chemo. As a matter of fact, starting March 1st, I have to spend 28 days in the hospital because this next chemo they're giving me, it has to be administered. It is administered 24 hours a day for 28 days. Then you get a 2-week break, and then they do it again. And that, I'm getting 4 doses of that. That's basically the next 6 months of my life. The first dose, to see how I react to it, they're going to do in the hospital. So I'm just going to be there hooked up to the machine for 28 days straight getting this chemo. Then if I'm okay, if I don't have any reactions to it, real bad reactions, the side effects are the side effects. But, some people are allergic to chemo or they have really severe reactions. But if everything looks okay for that first treatment, I can get the next treatments at home, which will be obviously much nicer than staying a whole month in the hospital. And this next chemo is probably more severe. I could have lost my hair prior to this. I haven't so far, but the next chemo set, maybe I will, maybe I won't. You don't know until you get it. It's going to happen. But that's what that's what I'm trying to figure. It's interesting too, because I don't really know anything about cancer, and everything I know, which is probably wrong information or whatever, I've tried to learn since I've been diagnosed because it was so shocking. But that's kind of how life has been the last few months, and it's real life changing, I don't know. I keep saying that. I don't know. You guys have questions?
Well, obviously, just to say you look pretty good. I mean, when I look on my computer screen with both of you having your cameras on, Gobby looks like the cancer patient with the bald head and his V-neck t-shirt and his chest hair showing. But I recall when you first kind of let it be known on your Instagram that you had this diagnosis and everything that you were going through, and it was kind of it's a shocking thing to hear, because I think everybody has been touched by somebody in their family having cancer or some relatable diagnosis. I had several, my father and several other immediate other family members. And so it's always difficult when you see somebody going through something like this, because you never really quite know what to say or what to do or anything like that. And I noticed, with you had a brief GoFundMe, which your GoFundMe didn't do half as good as the girl that put Gorilla Glue in her hair, but still, that's all right. But
it's still up, by the way, right?
Is it her hair?
No, Giuseppe's GoFundMe.
Yes, my GoFundMe is still active. It hasn't ended. Unlike Kickstarter, it has no end date.
Oh, you need to link that to the thing.
When we post this, we will link it to our all of our stuff, or follow at Board Game Diner. It's also on his.
Oh yeah. But it's just one of those things that when you see somebody going through a hard time like that, it's often like I pointed out, you don't know what to do, you don't know what to say, and I think it's just been, even though we don't really know you, this is really the first time we've actually ever really spoken to you to any extent. It always has felt like, the past 4 years of our podcast, you have been a part of the podcast. It's like Giuseppe sent us an email, or Giuseppe said this, or Gobby's the Instagrammer. He's always looking on Instagram saying Giuseppe's playing this and griping about Giuseppe's always playing games. And Giuseppe says this, he plays this. And so it's just been a weird thing for us to feel like, we just do this podcast just, to kind of entertain ourselves. We never intended it to entertain anybody else. But it was just, I think it touched us a little bit closer to home when we found out you were going through this, just because we kind of feel like you were just part of the family, even though the board game, we didn't even really know you. And I think that was part in us wanting to have you on the show was, I know you're going through a hard time with all this, and I know it seems like you have a great attitude about it because everything you have described sounds as awful, but yet here you are acting like everything's fine.
Yeah. I mean, when I was first diagnosed, it was really weird because I was in the hospital and I didn't know if I was going to leave the hospital because it was real touch and go. And of course, the doctors, you know how doctors are. They're hard to communicate with. And they didn't want to tell me anything because they didn't know, like, if the chemo doesn't work on me, you're not leaving the hospital. They didn't say that, but now I realize that's why they wouldn't tell me about the future at first. And when I was first diagnosed, I would sit there in the hospital room and I couldn't even watch TV. I was like, what does this even mean? This is all meaningless. I don't want to hear about pizza or Netflix or something. Meaningless. And like, there was all these crime shows on it. It started with someone dying. And I'm like, I can't watch this. But you know what? That calmed down after a while. I don't know. It's okay now because even though I have this terrible illness, I don't really think about dying right now because right now I'm okay. I know that it may be closer than I expected my life expectancy to be, but right now things are okay. So I at least have a little more time. And the other kind of nice thing is now all I do is I can't work because I go to the doctor all the time and I have all these treatments and whatnot. So I kind of just hang around the house and I don't have a whole lot of responsibilities or whatnot. I have to kind of admit that's sort of nice. My poor wife now has a lot of extra stress. But
Giuseppe has taken his stress and loaded it onto Summer.
Yes. Yeah. I feel really bad. The one good thing is she can take, well, I don't know. There's nothing good. The only good thing is at least she can see me at work because I go to the hospital where she works. That was good in the beginning because when I was first diagnosed, there were no visitors allowed. And she was able to break that rule, which I felt bad for other people that couldn't get visitors, but I would have gone insane if she couldn't actually come to my room. But yeah, I don't know. I just try to stay positive as long as possible. A couple of weeks in the hospital, I'll probably be feeling a lot different coming up here. I do want to talk about the GoFundMe, though, because the GoFundMe was an amazing experience. And I didn't make millions of dollars, but the money we did make is really keeping us afloat. It really made all the difference. And it removed, we weren't stressed about financial things because it gave us a little bit of padding. And my family, of course, and my friends just beyond generous. But so many people from Instagram contributed money, small amounts, large amounts. There are people on Instagram that I chat with, and I kind of know like their names, but some people I only know their Instagram handle, and they contributed money, and it was really moving, and I've tried to express it every time I thank people through the campaign, but it was really touching. It was really touching the number of people that, knew me only from liking my pictures on Instagram, and they sent money to the GoFundMe. It was a good thing. I mean, it was really touching to me, and we really appreciate it, my whole family, because it's been a difficult thing, and we had to, in order for me to get care out of state, we had to change our insurance, and it's a much more expensive insurance. It's not a whole lot more expensive, but that, that's the thing. There's just so many expenses, and there's so many, when you go from never going to the doctor, going to the doctor maybe every 3 months or 6 months to multiple weekly doctor visits, like just going to get my blood drawn every week, even if it's $5 or $10, once a week, $10, that's $40 you weren't spending before. I mean, it's just everything adds up, and it's really, I just real appreciative of the GoFundMe. And yes, it's still open. If you'd like to contribute, you're saving my family, saving my wife and my parents and everyone that would be covering these things.
So are you able to get some of that money? Like you were saying, is help. So you've already, I don't have any idea how GoFundMe works, but you've already able to access some of that.
Yeah, GoFundMe is quite different from Kickstarter. So it's a continuous campaign, and they just send you the money every so often. I think it's once a week or once every couple weeks. They just send you a deposit. So basically, no money is held by GoFundMe.
Oh, okay.
As the money comes in, they continuously send it to you.
Yeah, it's not like Kickstarter, Gob. It's not like he's got stretch goals. If I reach this certain point, they'll let me eat lunch when I'm at the hospital. It's GoFundMe is they donate the money. Yeah, it goes straight to you.
Is it a nonprofit?
We pay them a little cut. There's a little transaction fee.
Okay.
It's not. It's fairly minimal. I mean, obviously, if someone just wants to hand me cash, then I don't pay a transaction fee on that. But and some people contribute, like my friends and family, they often contributed outside of the GoFundMe because,
they take some of it.
There's no transaction fee. But GoFundMe's transaction fee is very small. I mean, it'd be the same as if I set up a credit card. Yeah. People are giving me money through credit card or something. So.
Well, it's good to hear that you've had the community that you have kind of built up just a small bit around your Instagram, and how supportive the community, the board gaming community, has been for you. I think that's nice to hear. Just because, I mean, you see so much go on in the world, and a lot of times it's through random strangers, but still, just through your Instagram alone, I mean, just seeing people support you, I think that speaks volumes of the board gaming community.
Yeah, I mean, it really was a shining moment, I would have to say. I mean, because people that didn't know me from all over the world, too. Many of the contributions were from Europe. Some were from Asia. I mean, some of the people from Asia, I'm not even sure if they speak English. And I follow their accounts, and they usually post in Chinese or Japanese. And they contributed. And I don't even know. I mean, I guess they understood enough to understand what my situation was. They translated it or something.
Does it just show you like anonymous?
So when you contribute, you can choose how you want your name to be displayed. It's totally up to you. You can put whatever name you want in.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't have anything to do with the billing information. So you can choose anonymous, or a lot of people put their Instagram handle if they didn't think I knew them. Or they'd put their name and they'd give a comment to say who they were. Some people, and that's another thing too, I should point out, there are people who contributed, I don't really know who they are. Maybe they're from Instagram and I just don't know their real names. Maybe they're friends of friends, co-workers. I mean, yeah, when someone contributes, they decide what name they're going to put, and they decide if they're going to leave a comment. And many people just put their real name and nothing, and I wonder who they are, Some people are like coworkers of my sister, that I've never met. But yeah,
that's good. The whole medical thing is just an absolute nightmare. When my mom was in her last few weeks, it's like just day after day of hospital, and you talk to one nurse, and they get all this information from you. And apparently none of it gets relayed to the next person that walks in the door. And it's like, why are you asking me all this information when nothing gets relayed to the next person? And the doctor comes in with the nurse that just asked you all these questions, then asks you all the same questions again. I've never understood that. That drove my mom absolutely insane. And then it's just, any little thing you get charged exorbitant amounts for. I remember I had the one time I went to the ER. This is the one time. I had this horrendous migraine, and I usually get migraines. My mom has them. My brother has them, but this one was just like none other I've had before. I took my normal medicine for it. Didn't work. Go to the ER, and they give me the shot of I think it was sumatriptan. It was whatever I usually take, but they gave me like 2 shots of this and a shot of that, and it was like thousands of dollars just for that one trip to get rid of a headache. And it's just insane. So I can only imagine. I know what Mama had accrued on her stuff. She had some insurance, but not enough. So yeah, it's anything that anybody can contribute. We'll put the GoFundMe in our show notes. We have show notes. I put show notes in our show sometimes.
We have show notes.
We have show
speaking
notes.
Speaking of the show, we did ask Giuseppe to do like some sort of top 5 something, didn't we? There was something he was going to do.
Yes.
Right? I thought it was something of interest. It was something interesting. I just remember when you said what it was, I thought that will be interesting. What is it?
It is top 5 things I hate about board game rule books.
I take that back. It's not that interesting, but go ahead. No. Let me. So, a little bit about my background. You tell your background. I'm going to get another beer so we get through this. Keep going.
Right. Go ahead.
So, I'm a writer, but not an exciting writer. I'm a technical writer. Among many jobs I've had, I wrote textbooks. That was my job that I lost because of the pandemic. And I believe I know a little bit about formatting and how to transmit information. And some board game rule books, as I'm sure you guys know, they are terrible and they make me angry. But more importantly, they lack a level of professionalism. I mean, there are professional standards in text format, and they violate them.
Give us your worst offenders.
I don't want to call anyone out because I know a lot of board game companies are small and they don't, they don't have a lot of people on staff, and sometimes the designer is writing the book. I don't want to call anyone out, but there are some terrible ones. And also, one of the things I'm going to talk about is the apps. I don't understand what the problem is, but translating often from German to English or from any other language, translating between 2 languages, you have to have a capable translator and an editor who speaks the native language. And German board game publishers are some of the worst offenders. And I'll get into that. There's a reason why they need a native English speaker because of the differences between the German and the English language. But let me, I'll go through the items. You guys can comment if that's good, if you want.
I'll comment.
So number 5, I'm going to go from 5 to 1. Number 5, no component list and no picture of the game setup.
Agree.
I have an offender on my table right now. I think it's a Worthington game. I'm getting back into some of the old war games, and I am shocked that they do not have a component list, nor any pictures that describe what they're referring to, that this component is this type of cube, or this deck of cards is this deck. It's just, here's the components. We hope you have them all. I couldn't inventory this game if I wanted to.
If there's no pictures of the components, or at least a description, but a picture really is what you need, you should just burn the rule book because it will not aid you in any way to play the game.
Just good luck.
I will say there's a couple companies I really love that are doing great. Eagle Griffin, most of their rule books are amazing. We just got the Anachrony Kickstarter. That is the model that everyone should follow. All right. Number 4. Oh, here. I should have done this first. Not translated properly or reviewed by a native speaker. Now, why is this a problem? Well, a lot of the games we play, the rule books are written in German first. And often what I find is there's confusion about the sequence of events. The reason that is because in German, they only have 2 verb tenses. In English, we can have as many as 15. And so what happens is in German, you need far less words to describe the sequence of events because their words are more descriptive of that. But in English, we need it spelled out. Often 2 sentences are necessary to explain the sequence of how things are supposed to unfold. Even someone who speaks English, but a native German speaker, they don't always understand that, and they get that screwed up. And when you're reading the rule book, and this can happen in any language, but this is when you're reading the rule book, it makes sense in German, In English, it does not, because the sequence of events is not explained properly.
Why are our verbs so tense? Do they have anxiety?
But yeah, I mean, and part of that too is that English is a, in many ways, it's like a Creole or it's a combination of German and French. And you can see that even today, as long as the language has been around, we require additional words to explain things. We don't have highly descriptive words like other languages do, because English is like the mashing of German and French together. So that's number 4. Number 3, this may not be as exciting, but to me, this just kills me because in my professional life, I formatted text. No basic formatting. Headings, subheadings, bulleted lists. The headings need to be bigger than the subheadings, and they should be bold. And you should use color if you can afford color. And if something is important, bold it, or offset it somehow. Again, Eagle Griffin, what did we just get? Kanban EV followed all of these rules. Headings and subheadings, information that was important was in bold. How are you supposed to read the text if it's all exactly the same? And there's no clear differentiation between the different sections, the different, and Eurogames are the perfect way to organize this information because they're often, you have your turn and there's often different phases within that turn. There's your headings and subheadings right there.
Phases like the moon. I don't read board game rule books. I leave that to Jerry. And if there's not a video on it, I just don't learn it. I put it back on the shelf.
I will interject that, and just because you brought this game up, I just remember one of the first rule books that I read and thought, I read it from front to back, and as soon as I put it down, thought I knew how to play the game. This is a great rule book. Was the rule book for Underwater Cities?
Oh yeah.
I just remember reading that and thinking, man, they really put a lot of effort into making sure the examples were clear, because that was a complicated game, but yet it still come across as being just very clear and concise.
And the reason I feel so strongly about this is there are a handful of games that we have literally played sometimes multiple times with a rule wrong. Now, that's my fault. I didn't read it, but if the rule book was better, I don't think it would have happened. For instance, this is one of our famous ones. Early on, when we were learning Ticket to Ride, I just assumed you could lay as many trains as you wanted every turn. I don't know why I thought that. So you guys are, yeah. So
what we would play is
we just get giant hands, and then one person would go and lay down a bunch of trains.
Yeah. But it's one of specific color. It makes it a totally different
game, actually.
So which did you prefer? Which game do you prefer, yours or the real one?
The real one, I guess. I don't know. Our way of playing, it was definitely different. The problem with it was you could just sit for a long time, and if what you needed was still out there, you could just lay down and fill the whole area. It takes some of the
There's suddenly trains.
Yeah.
From coast to coast.
And it sort of makes the game, because everyone's holding, if no one's going down, you wait. It adds this weird sort of strategy to it.
Yeah.
You wait to who's going to go first, who's going to, blink first and throw their trains down.
Who's the noob, basically?
Okay, number 2, no repetition of rules. Now, again, I'm going to call out our German friends. For some reason, they feel like it's a crime. Once a rule is stated, it can never be mentioned again, even if it applies to another section of the game. And if you can't find that one paragraph where it's buried in the middle and not in bold, you will never know the rule.
Do you have an example of this?
I don't. I didn't want to call anyone out, but
come on.
Ticket to Ride's a pretty good example. The edition we have, I don't know if they've gotten better, but Ticket to Ride is a good example of no bulleted lists, no headings and subheadings. That's why I misunderstood how the cards were supposed to be played out, that you could only do one per turn. There is a section where it talks about that, and I misread it. I'm not saying their rule book is bad, but it should have been bolded. and put into a bulleted list. And maybe late editions now might have that better formatting. But I kind of skim read. My wife always accuses me of this. I sort of skim read because when I'm reading something, and often we're like sitting at the cafe and I'm trying to read the rules pretty quickly. So I'm looking for the headings and the subheadings in the bulleted list. And if they're not there, I might just decide a paragraph is not as important as another paragraph and I missed something. It's my fault. But if you had good formatting, I wouldn't have to work as hard. I don't know.
How do you feel about Portal Games Ignacy Cevicek rule books?
We don't have a lot of his games. I think they're pretty terrible, though, right? I mean,
yes.
Let me see. I don't know if we've ever
think it's
played
the translation
the only
issue.
one we have is Detective, right? The crime game.
Yeah.
But it didn't seem too bad. We were able to get it going.
Oh, okay.
Which, who is really terrible? And we love Alexander Pfister. Almost all of his rule books are hideous. I mean, we love Great Western Trail. We played it a dozen times. We played Maracaibo wrong 2 times. We had to go and watch a video. We had to read BGG posts to try to figure something out. And it literally is almost the same game.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, anytime you play Maracaibo is a waste of time. That's okay.
Wait, why don't you like Maracaibo?
Besides the fiddliness of the player boards with all these little bitty small brown pucks everywhere that get shifted. Besides that, the awful theme, the lack of any actual real mechanics. It's just a big rundown, circle the ship, and it's just
that is true.
It's tiresome. It's tiresome.
We like Alex. We. Of course, it's problematic now. Mombasa.
Your verbs are very tense.
My verbs are tense. It's like I just get so nervous as to what to say these days. We liked Mombasa. We liked Oh My Goods.
Oh, I love Oh My Goods.
I like the Oh My Goods solo with the expansion. I like. What's the one you like? Hong Kong Blackout. That's a really good one.
Why don't you just
no,
take
I hate
your
that
time.
one.
You hate?
No.
I'm
sorry.
Blackout is his best game. Alexander Pfister.
Did Giuseppe say he hates it?
It's
I have a really
Blackout.
funny story about Hong Kong Blackout. We played it only once. Maybe we need to play it more. We hated it. The only time a designer, well, no, that's not quite right. Twice designers have replied to my posts. Alexander Pfister replied to my post and said he was sorry we didn't like it.
See, he's a nice guy.
He is. I felt so terrible.
Hong Kong Blackout is amazing.
Maybe we didn't quite understand it. We need to try it again. We only played it once.
The rule book was bad. The rule book.
Maybe you're just anti-Rondell. How do you not like Rondell? He's our favorite guy.
We hated Great Western Trail the first time we played it, but we kept thinking about it, so then we played it again. And finally, a third time, we decided we liked it.
Interesting. We didn't like it our first play.
Oh, see, it was probably the rule book, though.
We didn't have a rule book. We had a guy at BGG teaching us the game, and we did not like it. But upon further review,
again, though, it's good.
Yeah,
that might have been the problem. He wasn't bolding his words.
Yep.
Yeah, it was kind of a weird thing. Like I would like to play it again. And now that they're coming out with Great Western Trail 21, 21, 22, 20, 34, whatever they're doing, I don't know.
I'm so excited I get to buy the game and its expansion again. Although, really, I mean, how many times has Vital Lacerda, I don't know how to say his name.
Vital.
How many times has Vital made Kanban? We own one of the previous editions too.
Yeah, I have the I think the original edition is what I have, and I've yet to play it with Gabi. But the solo of it that is nice enough. I think it's going to be a good one. I haven't played it with anybody yet, but I really like Drive. I think mine's the driver edition. I think I have the driver edition of Kanban.
Oh yeah,
the EV.
Yours is so old. Her name is Eve. Oh,
I have Kanban Model T.
Oh, okay.
Edition.
Okay, so that was your number 2, right?
Yes. Now, here's number one. Now, this is just me. This is probably just my pet peeve. But this is the ultimate sin. And I have seen this. I should have brought an example. But again, I don't want to call anyone out. But I've seen it in many rule books.
We will. Go ahead.
Rules that only appear in examples or picture captions. So the rule is not in the main text. But then they tell an example. And the example says, oh, and blue player does this because of... And then they list a rule that appears nowhere else in the book.
I wish I had an example of this example. Just give us one.
I don't have my collection. If I had my collection, I would
just do it. Come on.
Giuseppe, we're trying to get you a job, man. We're going to send this podcast to all the so do you have problems?
You can become an editor, rule book editor somewhere. A portal might hire you. We need you.
They need someone. And probably it's a language thing too. Because talk about, are they Polish or are they Czech?
They're Polish.
But both those languages, very, very different from English. A totally different language family. So of course, something is lost in translation, you know?
They're Polish, but they should check their rule book. Did you see what I did there?
I got
I'm international.
Look at you.
I'm Pitbull.
305.
You should start your own YouTube channel, Giuseppe, where you just angrily point out rules that are easily missed and should be bolded. You can call it like the Angry Editor or something like that, where you just have a rule book and just angrily pointing out rules that people might miss.
But I need a small child like Cora to really get famous.
No, well, that's okay. We've tried that. We have
Enrique.
We have Enrique. And we shot some videos like that. I had this idea of having like commonly overmissed rules and having, somebody pointed out. And Enrique's hands are very, small and childlike that'd be utilized on the video, but it didn't work out. But I'll pass that idea on to you. You should just start your own board game YouTube of these are the rules and how they mess them up.
Rules by GMAC. Done.
I could because, some companies, they really anger me, especially the big ones. If you're a tiny company, like what was that dinosaur game, Dinogenics?
Yes.
That had a bad right? But they're a small company, But if you're Asmodee, there's no excuse. Mm-mm. You shouldn't be making crappy rule books with your games.
Yeah, the Dinogenics rule book, not the best, but they had this reboot of their game, and hopefully it's better. And Richard Keene, I think that was the guy. Like, that's an excellent game. Excellent game. Love that game. But the rule book...
Well, this is the thing, too. I hear this a lot when I listen to those board game content creators. But...
air quotes.
But they say that a lot of games don't get blind play tested. And I think that's true. Like, they don't... And what that would be is you just give the game in the rule book to a group of people who've never played it. And you don't let the designer go in there and explain. And can they, using the rule book and the game, figure out how to play the game properly? And if you do that, you see areas where the rule book might not be communicating something the best way. Or where the game might be confusing, where people might want to do something one way, but the actual rule is something different. I mean, that's what we do, in publishing when you're writing a textbook. Because I actually... Which is weird because I am not a handyman in any way, but I actually wrote textbooks for trade skills for a trade union is who I worked for. And I wrote textbooks on how to be a carpenter and do other trades like that. And we would do the same thing. We would have a list of how to do a specific task, and we would give it to someone and we'd watch them. How are they following? Are the steps correct? Are they doing everything that's necessary when they follow our list of rules? And I mean, that's just basic testing for written information. I don't know.
I watched an interview done. I can't remember which designer it was, but he was co-designing a game with Matt Leacock, and he was talking about how Matt Leacock would have his games blind tested, and he did it slightly different. He would allow the testers to read the rule book and then start playing the game, but then he would sit in on the game and remove the rule book. And whenever they would have a question regarding the rules, he would ask them, how do you think you should do it?
Oh.
Like, what's intuitive to you? Like, how do you think this should be? And they would go, well, I think it should be this. And he found that a lot of times the rules of his games that weren't intuitive, if it was constantly being misunderstood or constantly people were always wanting to do a rule this way, he would eventually just change it in the game because he realized that most people, you do certain things just intuitively. Like it makes sense that this rule should be this way to most people. We'll just leave it in there. And I think that makes a lot of sense in a lot of these board games. That there are certain rules that I need reminded of every time I play a game. Brass is my favorite game. I know I have to have roads connected to get coal. I don't have to for iron. I have to remind myself of that every single time I play that game. And I think that has to be very evident in all the rule books. Well, that's interesting. So you just wrote textbooks about things you didn't know. People gave you what, and you just reformatted it.
Well, yeah, that was part of it. Actually, what I did is I would work with a group of master carpenters. Basically, what we would do is we would meet. We would prepare an outline. I wrote some of the textbooks, but sometimes I was actually the person preparing the outline for the writer. And we would meet every day with this group of master carpenters, and we would slowly build an outline for the textbook. And they would put all the information in there. And my contribution was to organize the information in a way that it could be interpreted. Because I wrote textbooks for the apprenticeship program. So these were people who might know nothing. And the reason that everyone that worked, the people in my position, they were almost always people who knew nothing about the trade, because that helped interpret the information better to a new person. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes I did write the books. And so when I worked on the other end of the project, I would get the outline and I would try to interpret what they had put into it into a text, which was sometimes good and sometimes really frustrating, but when you're a master at something, you often leave out the little details because you just assume everyone knows.
You're not telling me anything. I skipped over stuff all the time. I just assume everyone's on the same level. But we can't. Yeah, that's just how it is. Wow. But Gobby's camera went off. He's no doubt running to the bathroom. His he's having a lot of bladder issues here lately.
I see, and he has a picture of him and Tom. That's interesting.
That offends me every time. He went to BGG and Gobby's screen capture for his all of his videos are of him and Tom, a picture he took with Tom Vassell. And this is back, if you'll notice, this is so far back, that's when Gobby had a little bit of hair.
Oh, yeah.
And Tom was, he still really liked Tom. Gobby had a crush on Tom Vassell for the longest time.
Well, just like Giuseppe, he was my intro into the gaming world.
I'm going to have to get off here. We're going to have to wrap this up, as interesting as this is. But we think...
much like
Mr.
an armadillo wraps his body up into a ball.
Yes, and well, I have semi-wrapped it, and now I'm clamping down. I'm cutting off. Giuseppe, tell everybody how to get a hold of you in case they want to send you hate mail.
Oh, very good. Just come to my Instagram, Board Game Diner, and you can just post that you hate my most recent picture. That would be awesome. You could follow me. I also have Twitter and Facebook. They're also Board Game Diner. But Instagram is the service that I use the most. Also, in anticipation of spending a month in the hospital, I've started playing Animal Crossing. So if you want to friend me on my Nintendo Switch, just message me and I'll send you my friend code.
Animal Crossing. Can you do armadillos?
Yeah, I hope so. I want to eat an armadillo. It's become my new goal.
Why did the chicken cross the road? To prove to the armadillo it could be done. Those are Animal Crossings, the road. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. We will post the GoFundMe for Giuseppe. Please feel free to, donate any of your inheritances towards Giuseppe's fun. He needs it. Maybe we should start a GoFundMe, Jerry.
You look pathetic enough.
Hey, don't you guys need to pay your power bills and keep your generators running?
Yes, our power is the ERCOT has let us down here in Texas. Just saying. But no, we're good for now. I have yet. Well, okay. I have a job story for the future. We'll let that go for now. But until then, I'm Gabby.
This is Jerry.
And also
Giuseppe.
Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
G-Unit.
Thank you for listening to the Board Game Snobs. Stay classy.